Hi and welcome. I'm Ashleigh Frankel, co-founder of the WiseMind Company, where we're dedicated to empowering people and teams with the soft skills for strengthened leadership and sustainable well-being. I'm looking forward to guiding you through this session on positive power. In this micro session, we're going to explore the powerful relationship between positive emotions and resilience. And I'm going to share with you 4 evidence-based practices to boost positive emotions and help you build resilience and flourish, even in the midst of uncertainty and challenge. Well, at first, it may seem trivial to be focusing on positive emotions in the face of these challenging times. There are a whole bunch of positive emotions like joy and gratitude, hope and awe and pride, to name a few, that research tells us are critical necessities for optimal functioning. That's because positive emotions do so much more than just help us feel good in the moment. We often think that because positive emotions are short-lived, that they don't have long-term enduring impact, but that's not true. It wasn't actually until recently that psychologists even began to study the power of positive emotions. The leading researcher in this space is Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, and it's her research and work that really lays the foundation for our session today. What she's found is that there is a direct cause and effect relationship between positive emotions and your resilience. According to Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, all positive emotions share 2 core truths. And this really is the foundation of her broaden and build theory. So the first of the truths is that they open us up. So you might think of like the dandelions that are yellow and bright and open all day. And then at night, they close down in the darkness. And when the sun rises the next day and warms them, they begin to open up again. So positive emotions are like the sun. They warm our minds and our hearts, and they open us up. The second truth is that positive emotions transform us for the better. So when positive emotions open us up, they broaden possibilities. The parts of our brain responsible for problem solving, perspective taking, and emotional regulation are activated by positive emotions. Ultimately, that leads us to be able to see the forest through the trees. This is quite the opposite of what our brain tends to do when we're stressed. When we're stressed, even our peripheral vision actually narrows, and we tend to become hyper-focused and fixated on the problem or the perceived problem, that thing that's causing us stress. So this can help counteract that. This wider awareness creates the opportunity for more possibilities, options, greater creativity, and also has been shown to foster greater collaboration. It also leads to improved performance. So you might already be thinking about how helpful it would be to induce positive emotions before an interview, for an example, or a networking opportunity if you're anything like me and you find those to be anxiety or stress-inducing, or even a challenging conversation. Positive emotions flip the switch on the smart part of our brain. Over time, positive emotions also build enduring resources, really important resources like physical ones and intellectual, social, and psychological as well. The changes are small and incremental, but they're predictable and they've also been shown to be permanent. So brain scans have shown that there are actually structural changes in the brain, and those changes are in the areas of our executive function, where there's also shown to be increased feelings of connection, self-efficacy, trust, purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. And I name all of those because they are all core competencies of resilience. The research also shows that the positive emotions improve our immune system, which I think has been top of mind for many of us these days. Essentially, what we're doing is we're building a resilience capital by intentionally cultivating positive emotion. And then we can draw on that capital when times get tough. This is great, right? But how much positivity do we need to experience these benefits? Like, how many servings of vegetables do we need in our diet to help improve our physical health? How many doses of positivity do we need to support our mental and emotional health? Dr. Barbara Fredrickson wanted to know the ratio of positive to negative emotions that would tip a person's subjective experience of well-being from good enough to flourishing. And what she found is that that ratio is 3 to 1. So to seed resilient thriving, we need 3 heartfelt positive emotions for every 1 heart-wrenching one. This is more helpful to us if we think about it in terms of weeks, months, or years, as opposed to daily. But as a point of reference, the studies have shown that most of us are at a 2 to 1 ratio. So there is an opportunity for growth for many of us in this area. What's also really important to note is that the ratio is not 3 to 0. This ratio accounts for the spectrum of the human experience, and that human experience includes negative emotions. We're not pretending that there is no negative. We're not talking about that toxic positivity. You see messaging in social media like good vibes only or just positive thoughts. That is not what this is about at all. Negative emotions are critically important. They help us survive. They alert us to when something's wrong, and they can mobilize us to really important personal and societal change. In this conversation, we are not talking about forcing the negative away. But what we do want to do is find ways of cultivating genuine, heartfelt, positive emotions as well. This takes practice because, as Rick Hansen says, your brain is like velcro for negative experiences, but Teflon for positive ones. In other words, we are hardwired to notice the negative. And on top of it, to experience negative emotions more intensely than we do positive ones. Just take a moment to reflect on where your mind goes at the end of a busy day. Do you focus on the 5 things you did well, or the one thing that felt like it maybe didn't go so well? Do you focus on the 10 things you accomplished or the one thing you didn't accomplish? Don't worry. If you're focusing on the one thing you didn't accomplish, you are definitely not alone. That's because this is part of our biology. Negative emotions scream at us, but the positive ones just tend to whisper. The good news is we can change this. The key to changing it is cultivating habits of mind and practices to help us tune into the positive emotions and enhance them. Essentially, we're turning the dial up, turning up the volume on those positive emotions so we can get the benefit of them. Going back to that broaden and build theory. So how do we do that? Well, let's see how easy it can be. To tip yourself into that 3 to 1 ratio that science shows helps us flourish, begin by cultivating these habits, each of which is validated by good science. The first 2 practices that I'm sharing with you help us become aware of the positive that's around us and in our lives already, but it tends to go unnoticed. The first is a gratitude practice. Gratitude has the capacity to increase important feel-good chemicals in the body, such as dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, which is also known as the hug hormone. They help us feel safe when we might otherwise be feeling stressed. These are contrite with feelings of closeness, connection, and happiness. Brain scans of those practicing gratitude shows that the parts of the brain that light up, so we often say that neurons that fire together wire together. And so the neurons that are firing together during gratitude practice are ones that are associated with the reward center of the brain. What this means is that the practice of gratitude positively impacts stress levels, mood, morality, and the decision-making, and also our sense of safety. So how do we do this? Well, you might already be thinking of the ways that you practice gratitude in your daily life, both formally and informally. I have two practices that are scientifically shown to really help us get the maximum benefits from our gratitude practice. The first is to keep a gratitude journal. It's simple. I mean, the hardest part is just remembering to do it. So all you're going to do is grab a journal or even just a piece of paper, and at the end of each day or in the morning, note down 3 things that you're grateful for. And really try to focus on what it is about each of those things that you're thankful for. The second practice, I love this one so much. This is from the work of Dr. Robert Emmons. He's a leading researcher in the science of gratitude, and he calls it the 2-minute miracle. This is because of how many positive effects this practice has in such a short time. What you're doing with this practice is you're really sharing your gratitude with someone else. We know when we do that, we strengthen connection between us. So we get all the benefits ourselves of the increase in those important good feeling chemicals in the body, but we also extend it into our relationship with someone else. And connection is a core foundational competency of resilience. It's one of the most important things in helping us navigate through times of challenge and uncertainty. So all you do is think about somebody that you're grateful for. It could be a colleague, it could be a frontline worker, or a friend, a family member. And ideally, it's someone that you haven't thanked recently, maybe someone that you even overlook thanking. And spend a few minutes identifying what it is about them that you're really grateful for. And then you share it with them. The best results have been shown to be when we do that in person, but given our current circumstances, that could be really difficult. We definitely want to stay safe first. So maybe you pick up the phone and give them a call, or write them a handwritten note and send it in snail mail. Whatever it is, just taking the time to express the qualities or reasons why you're grateful for them. The second related practice comes from the field of positive psychology. And it's actually so important that it forms one of their 21 empirically supported skills in their world-renowned resilience training program. And it's simply referred to as hunt the good stuff. What you want to start to do is just intentionally train the brain to notice the good in your day. And this can happen in any number of ways, but I have a few examples here for you. So one is starting to count kindness, really just making it a bit of a game, a little bit of fun, counting the ways you are kind each day. So the giving of kindness, but also the receiving of kindness. Another practice that I personally love is to keep an I've accomplished list. You know, we all have these never-ending to-do lists, and it's really easy to miss all of the things that we actually accomplish in a given day or week or month, and ideally celebrating those accomplishments too. So I like to keep an I've accomplished list and fill that in as the day goes on so that I can look back and acknowledge all the things I've done. In the last practice, this is from the research of Dr. Martin Seligman. Often he's referred to as the father of positive psychology, which is the study of human flourishing. And he has this practice that's just about looking at what went well today, but also asking why it went well. And there's so much research to support the powerful positive impact that this has. So I just wanted to invite you while you're here, knowing how busy so many of our days are and how easy it is to tune in here and then not actually engage in the practices. I thought I'd help us kickstart it by suggesting that maybe you pause this micro session right now and just take a few minutes to write down 3 things that went well today and why. And if it's early in the day when you're watching this, then you can always reflect on yesterday or this past week. You might just consider this your mind fitness practice. Okay. This takes us to our third practice, and this is the mindfulness-based practice of savoring. So as we talked about, our default is to let the good slide off, even if we stop to notice it. Rick Hansen, who I quoted earlier, has done so much work in this area. And what he's found is that if we can hold on to the positive experience that we have for 20 seconds, that is long enough to create positive structural changes in the brain. I don't know. I mean, I've known about this for so long. I share this all the time. And every time I share it, it still amazes me the difference that 20 seconds can make. So this practice of holding positive experiences or savoring them helps build those enduring resources that we spoke about earlier. So what is savoring? Well, really simply, it's the act of stepping into an experience by inviting in qualities of awareness and appreciation. You can savor just about anything. You can savor a meal, a walk, the sound of laughter. To do so, you just have to slow down and be present. I mean, this really is the trickiest part, because what we also know from research is that an untrained mind is a wandering mind. Do you know that most of us spend up to 50% with our minds everywhere but the present moment? So it's a practice and it'll take time, but it's a worthy investment. So you can savor an experience in the moment, but you can also savor a past experience and draw it up in order to help build these enduring resources. So this is perhaps the easiest way to practice. And I thought we would give it a try just so you can see how easy it can be. So our personal practice right now is going to be about savoring joy. It's just going to take a minute or two. Focusing on the emotion of joy, I want to invite you to call up something that has brought you joy recently. And just remember that it can be something really small. Like the other day, my kids, it was the first day that they had seen a ladybug this season. And I had just come off a work call and I noticed them gathering around, all three of them around this little ladybug. And that little tiny moment is a moment of joy. Like when I think about this practice right now, that's what comes up for me. So it can be really small or something bigger and more significant. If you can't find anything in the last week or so, then go back even further and see if you can call up an experience that brought you joy. Okay, so you can close down your eyes for this if it helps you really visualize and tune into this, tap into the experience, but you can also keep them open. And I want to invite you to just think about that experience in as much detail as possible. So call up who was there. Allow your mind to drift off into what smells, sights, and sounds were present during this experience. And then noticing what feelings were present along with the joy. So what else did the joy provide a gateway for? And now letting your mind wander, if it wants to anything else that makes you feel good. And even inviting you to bring a slight smile to your lips. And noticing how quickly that intentional smile becomes really natural and helps to enhance the positive feelings that you're already feeling and acknowledging. So that completes that savoring joy practice, and just noticing for yourself what impact, if any, that had on how you're feeling or the nature of your thoughts. Our last practice, generosity of spirit, focuses on interconnection, because so much of our flourishing, our resilience, and our positive emotions depend on interconnectedness. Our interconnectedness to people, and even our interconnectedness to nature, Mother Earth. Science shows that engaging in giving, so it doesn't have to be money, giving of time, effort, even giving the gift of your presence, just such a rarity these days in our autopilot, always on multitasking world. By engaging in giving, it leads to better health, better well-being, and even overall a longer lifespan. So a simple way to engage in generosity of spirit and to make this a habit of mind is to ask yourself, What good shall I do today? Apparently, this question was part of Benjamin Franklin's strict morning routine. I also just want to share briefly a personal story with you that illustrates how powerful this can be. A number of years ago, in about 2005, there was a tsunami that ravaged many parts of the world, including Thailand. And shortly after that tsunami came, I decided I was going to leave my career in law and head over to Thailand to build some houses. While I was there, I was struck by the resilience, the hope, and the positive nature of all of the Thai families that I was working with to rebuild their homes. And these were families that had lost so much. Some had lost children. They had all lost their homes. This was a small fishing village. They lost their livelihood. They lost their boats. And so I asked a friend who was American educated, so she spoke English and Thai. I asked her if she would ask this one gentleman who I was particularly struck by, Pisuk was his name, what is it that allows you to be so resilient? And his answer was, when we're suffering, we look out to see how we can be of service and help others. I was, struck by that response, but I really kind of stuck it in my back pocket. I was 27 years old, and away I went. After my months in Thailand, I returned to Canada and to my career in law. And it was about 5 years later that I found myself struggling with anxiety and depression after having my second child. And it was at that time that I found a bracelet from my time in Thailand, and I put it on. And in that moment, I remembered his advice that when we suffer, we look out and see how we can be of service to others. And in that moment, I put myself on a little mental and emotional fitness regime, if you will, and I called it 30 Days to Joy. And some days I had very little energy for it. So holding a door for someone was the best I could do. Sometimes it was paying for the person's coffee behind me in line. Tiny acts, and sometimes they were bigger. But I made it a daily practice to try to have a generous spirit. And while that practice did not take away the depression and it didn't resolve the anxiety, it did something amazing. The way I describe it is that it was like a life jacket. It kept me afloat, and it allowed me to then build the other resources that I needed to build in order to move resiliently through this challenging time. So I just share that personal experience with you because this particular practice has been life-giving for me. And I hope it's really valuable for you too. So we've gone through 4 practices. There's a lot of science behind this, but it is not rocket science. We're already having many positive experiences throughout a day. Those are the seeds of our positive emotions. What we want to start to do is really slow down and cultivate these habits of mind that I shared with you so that we can amplify and turn up the volume and leverage those emotions for enduring well-being. And so as this quote from Dr. Barbara Fredrickson says, you need to pivot away from what's worked for others toward what works for you. Discover for yourself what rouses genuine and heartfelt positivity. And if I can just extend that a little further and say, when you discover it, please prioritize it. And hopefully, when you doubt the importance of it, you'll think back on some of what we shared together today and realize just how important it is. I always like to provide what I call a little booster. It's like a multivitamin, so all in one, instead of having to take 4 separate vitamins, if you will. And so I wanted to share this little booster with you. It's my morning practice. And what it does is it really wraps up the practices that I've shared with you into one practice. So I start my day by reflecting on these 3 questions. How do I want to feel? And what is one thing I can do to feel that way? And then prioritize that one thing, of course. What am I grateful for and why? And of course, what good shall I do today? What I really believe is that when we start our day this way, we set our GPS on the path of resilience. And that concludes our session today. I want to thank you for showing up for yourself today and being here and investing in you. And as you can see on this slide, you have my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or want any support in beginning to integrate these powerful habits of mind. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.